Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd. And if you heard the echo through Mary Jo and Leanne's headsets, then this is the second time you're hearing this, because I was on the wrong phone line. Imagine that, a nerd that can't punch into the right phone line, and an infrastructure nerd at that. Today, you are here, and we are here for the, gosh, what month is it? It's June. My mind is a little fuzzy because it's spring and time for summer vacations. And we are here for the June 2011 virtual user group meeting, which of course we affectionately call the water cooler. Now today we have one main topic and then a little something extra that we didn't really pre-announce, which is our version 16 tip of the month. But our main topic today is how to get time entered through PracticeMaster and therefore keep those pesky attorneys and paralegals out of tabs. Now, PracticeMaster has so many ways to enter time that we've devoted an entire session to this. And so we've broken it down between what Mary Jo is going to show you and what I'm going to show you. And I am going to start with some of the more basic ways of doing things, one being that I can simply go into a client in PracticeMaster, and we'll check and see if we've got Scooby-Doo in here. And Mary Jo's frantically pointing at me going, housekeeping, housekeeping. This is where if we were at a live seminar, as you lawyers and paralegals who go to CLE sessions know, that they would point out where the bathrooms are and where the telephones are. Well, they used to do that. I guess they don't do that anymore. Everybody's got a cell phone. We actually saw somebody the other day using a payphone. I haven't seen that in a while. But here we instead talk about how to raise your hand and how to ask a question. Now, those are two separate things because some people like to ask a question and not have anybody know that they're asking a question. And so if you look over to the right, you either have a big box rectangle that takes up maybe a third or a quarter of your screen, or you don't. If you don't, it's because you've probably already figured out how to get rid of that thing. If you do, you'll notice that jutting off to the left of this big rectangle, there's a smaller rectangle with 3 or 4 buttons in it. And the top button would be arrows that point to the right. And if you click those arrows that point to the right, it will push that big box out of the way. If instead you want to get that big box back, you'll notice that once you use the arrows to point to the right and the big box goes away, that those arrows will change to an icon that is instead arrows that point to the left, and clicking it at that point will cause that big box to come back into focus. Why would you want it to come back into focus? Because one of the things that's in that big box is a place to type your questions. So if you're shy and you don't want to raise your hand, then you can type your questions here. Leanne will notice that at some point, will interrupt us, will ask your question, and we'll get an answer for you. If instead you are feeling a little less shy, you'll notice that one of the buttons that's in the little box that juts off to the left, the one that's got the arrows pointing to the right or left, there is an icon that looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upward in front of it. That is raise your hand. Once you do that, Leanne will notice that you have raised your hand. She will interrupt us at some point, unmute you, let you ask your question, and then mute you back up so that you can go back to eating your Doritos, Fritos, or chips. So without further ado then, and by the way, the bathrooms are down the hall and to the left, for those of you who wanted to know. We will now go into entering fees. The most simple of ways is to simply pull up the client that you are looking to enter a fee for, and as you do all those other things that you would do in PracticeMaster, like look at their details, or check their calendar items, or see if anybody's taken a note about the telephone call that Mr. Scooby-Doo placed to the firm this morning, you'll notice that one of the other icons that shows up here is, or one of the other tabs that shows up is the Fee tab. Now, if in PracticeMaster you do not see this Fee tab, you need to enable it on a user-by-user basis. What that means is you need to log in as each user that you want to see this Fee tab, go to Configure Client Pages, which is available in the Edit menu when you're in the List tab, and simply tell it that you want to see the Fee tab within the client screen. the fee tab, the cost tab. You may have tabs that look a little different than this, and it has to do with how Configure Client Pages is set. Now, once you've got it set to show you fees, when you click on this tab, it will show you WIP fees for that particular client and that particular matter. So if they don't have any fees that haven't been billed, this list will be empty as it is now. If they have fees that have not shown up on a statement that's been updated, those are WIP fees, and those will show here. But clicking this new icon will simply cause it to take you into a fee entry window where you can enter a fee. And if you are somebody who's used to entering a fee in tabs, you'll notice that that is just like entering a fee in PracticeMaster. The screen looks the same, and for the most part it operates the same. Now there's one strange thing. We'll say that this is a fee entry for Paul Purdue. Today we'll use T-code, whatever WBT web-based training is. We'll say that it's 0.5 hours. And here's what's different. In tabs, you would immediately get this rate filled in based on what the rate is for this matter for this client when Paul Purdue does work. In PracticeMaster, you've got to understand that the fee file, although it's shared, is actually kind of a separate file that doesn't synchronize, that doesn't sync up until you enter this fee and save it. So whereas tabs might look immediately and find out what the rate is for this matter, for this client, for this timekeeper, PracticeMaster doesn't do that until after you've saved it, and therefore both this rate field and the amount field will be 0. Okay? But when you do go ahead and save it, it'll fill that in and come up with a rate of probably 125, an amount of probably 62.50. And you can see that here, 62.50, rate 125. If we were to drill down and go back into that entry, it would show that. And Leanne, do we have somebody?
Yes, Mary has a question. Go ahead, Mary.
Yes, I wondered if in the fee window, if there was any way you could set preferences to view a list of the updated billed fees in chronological order?
Good question. There is a setting when you synchronize tabs in PracticeMaster that determines whether or not you see, in addition to the WIP, the historical fees, the archived fees. And I'm assuming that's what you're asking, Mary, the stuff that's already been billed. And yes, if when you synchronize tabs in PracticeMaster, you tell it you want to do that, it will take those archived fees and throw them back over to PracticeMaster to show up in this window. Now, the thing is that if you're going to do that, that has to become part of your month-end billing cycle, because the minute you print those final bills and then actually the minute you update them, you then need to immediately, as part of your cycle, run or rerun, I should say, the tabs 3 PracticeMaster synchronization. That will take all those newly archived fee entries and push them back out to PracticeMaster to show up here. Did that answer it? Oh, it must have, because Leanne's already gone and she's probably eating Doritos by now. Okay, thanks, Mary. Okay, now another way to enter fees in PracticeMaster is pretty much the same thing, except you don't do it through the client file. So let's pretend that I don't even have the client file open, although you could have the client file open and also have this window open. If you go to File and then Open and then Fees, you will be opening the fee file in what I call raw form. And what that means is it's opening up the fee file without regard for a particular matter or a particular client. Now what you'll see here then is all the fees, regardless of who entered them, regardless of what matter they are, regardless of what client they are. And if you hit the white blank piece of paper here, you will get the same screen, but before you get it, you'll be prompted for a client. Now, some people prefer this because they're used to entering fees through tabs, and they're used to going to a screen where they just sit continually adding new fees regardless of what client it is. So instead of having to pull up the client, they keep this window open and just keep hitting that new icon and putting in an item and specifying the client for each fee that they enter. Basically the same screen, so I'm not even going to take you through to it. I'm just going to cancel out of here and let you know that that's another way to do that. And the way I got there was File, Open, and then Fee. And I believe there's actually a shortcut key. If you go in there and take a look, you'll see that that is I believe it's Control-Alt, Control-Shift-F. No, I'm getting a very slow internet connection, so we'll just tell you that if you go in there, well, here we go, Control-Shift-F, like I thought. So you can also just hit Control-Shift-F, or you can do File, Open, and then Fee, and open it up that way. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to turn things over to Mary Jo, who's going to talk, I believe, about converting fees.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to talk to you about how, when you're already in certain tasks or things that you're working on in PracticeMaster, to easily just save what you're doing and then convert it to a fee instead of creating a new fee entry over something you've already done. For instance, a journal record. If you're already creating a journal note and it's already in there, why exit and retype all that information to create a fee when you can just convert it to a fee right from there? So usually I'm going to just go right over to a client. Let's get our Scooby-Doo. And let's just say that I have a journal note out here for Scooby. And I create one that's just a test journal note. And I put in all my information. This might be a couple paragraphs. This might be, a couple sentences, whatever it is that you did on the case. And you save that. It goes ahead and creates your journal note. And so I've got that in here. And let me close my workflow reminder. And now if I just, instead of going out and just clicking on fee and then recreating that, I can just go to my quick clicks, and you've got a convert to fee setting over here that you can just click on. When I do that, it pops open the fee window and it populates my description with whatever I've typed there, or I can actually default it to be the transaction code, whatever I want. Sometimes you might be out there typing 4 or 5 paragraphs for your journal note, but on the client's bill you only wanted to say conference with client or phone call from client, something like that. So this gives you that ability to either say just default it to blank so I can type my own, or actually bring over my description of what I did, and I'll adjust it. And then you just put your time in, your 1 hour to bill, and you save it. And now that is completely, it's billed that, it's put it onto the client's bill and tabs, and I still retain my original journal note. So I've got my note here in its entirety. If I go to fee, I can see now I've got my test fee that's been billed over here. So it just eliminates one of those steps from having to go directly over. I can bill as I work and get that done. So this journal note record is one place you can do that. You can do that from calendar. Anywhere over here in Quick Clicks. If I had a calendar entry, I could convert that to a fee. So while I'm already in a client or in PracticeMaster over here working, I can convert. Now, if you are out in Outlook, a lot of times when you're out there, you just want to convert an email to a fee. You might not want to even journal that email. You just want to bill for it. So that's another place that we can do that. And I'm going to switch over here to my other place here. Whoops, we got a pause reminders here. This is our live data, so let me get this. Can I reduce? I'm a little slow here. Hold on. Get Outlook open. And so here in Outlook, you'll see we've got a PracticeMaster Toolbar we've installed. And these toolbars are in PracticeMaster, and you can install them for Outlook, for Word, for Excel, Adobe, Internet Explorer. All of the main programs that you use outside of PracticeMaster, we can put a little PracticeMaster Toolbar in there that has a PM fee button on there. So not only can you save those documents you're creating or those emails into PracticeMaster and journal them, but you could also just bill for it. So here's what the PracticeMaster Toolbar looks like. You've probably seen the journal or the calendar in the Outlook, but there's also this one for fee. And a lot of people ignore that. If you just had an email you want to bill for, you can just go ahead and click on that, and you can create a fee entry. It will go ahead and ask you what client you want to put it under and pop the fee window for you. You can also have that automatically pop. We can set your settings so that will just, you can create that on send. If you're sending emails, we can have that automatically pop to journal and to create a fee entry if you want. So that's all things you can turn on for sent emails automatic, or for the inbox you can choose and just hit the PM fee and bill for that. So that's Outlook. And I'm going to pop back over to my other screen here to show you Word and what that looks like. And again, there is a PracticeMaster tab that gets installed. Or if you have an older version of Word, I think we have 7 on here. If you've got an older version of Word, it might be under add-ins or something like that, or you might have to view the toolbar. But it's there. You can install this toolbar. And again, you've got that PM fee button. So I could be creating a pleading, whatever I need to, a letter to the client. I want to just bill for it. Once it's saved, I just hit the PM fee button, and I create my entry that way. And again, that's available in Excel, Adobe, Internet Explorer. I'm not going to go into each one of them for you. But that toolbar looks the same, and you're able to do that. The settings for that are under Maintenance and then Preferences, and there are Convert to Fee settings. And I'm going to show you a little bit of what these look like. Each different tab, Calendar, Email, Notes, Phone, Research, Timer, has its own settings. So if you like your timer to be displaying one particular transaction code as a default, but Notes is a different one, you can set each one of these. So here on the first one, we've got our transaction code. And so a lot of times for calendar, that could be for a lot of different things. It could be hearing. It could be, you know, a client appointment. So you may not want to set a default. You might want that to be set to blank. But email, you might have a transaction code for email, and every time you journal an email or convert an email to a fee, you just want that to default to email. So that's where that would come into play. If you had a phone call, you know, from a client or to a client, you might want to default that. If you're using task-based billing, you can also default those codes as well. The big one here for defaulting to the timekeeper, if you are an attorney and you're entering your own time, you probably always want to use timekeeper whoever you are. If you're a legal assistant or a paralegal or someone who's entering time for other attorneys and you are primarily using one attorney, you might want to default to that one. If you're entering time for lots of attorneys, you might want to just have it default to the client's primary timekeeper. Most of the time, that's the timekeeper that's doing that work on that case, and you can always change it. But this will just save you a little bit of time, so it's not always defaulting to somebody you never use, and you have to change it every time. So that will give you that ability to designate how you want to do it. And it also has timekeeper used on the last fee, so those are your options. For the description, you can set whether or not you want it to just default to the description that you typed. That's what I was talking about with your journal record. If you typed that whole journal record and hit Convert to Fee, and you wanted it to just default to whatever you typed there, you would choose Description field. If you wanted to go ahead and have a transaction code replace that, you could go ahead and default it to be whatever the transaction code that you choose when you set up the fee. So it will pop the fee window, and then you can just do the drop-down and choose whatever transaction code, just like you were entering a normal fee. And then you also have the ability to just customize the description and edit that to be whatever you want it to be. But usually, you know, you'd probably set it to one of these first two. Either you want to do it by T-code, or you want to just default it to the description you typed in the note or the calendar. And then the last thing here for calendar, and it is available in all of these, you can default the minimum amount of time to bill. So on emails or calendar records, if you always want to default to a 1/10 of an hour minimum and then round it to the nearest 1/10, if there's time involved, you can do that as well. You've also got your email tab, again, same things, notes, phone, research. You'll notice on phone, research and timer, there's a few additional things if you're combining multiple records into one fee. Paul will talk to you a little bit more about that when he's talking about processing timer records, but you have the ability to combine, if you've started 3 different records for that client today and you want to just combine them all into one entry, you can do that. But this is set your minimum amounts to bill, and then you're rounding to the nearest amount. So if you always bill in 1/10, you can set all of these to 1/10 of an hour. If you do quarter hours, whatever, this is where you would set that. Okay. The other way that I'm going to talk about is the timer. I use it all the time. This is what I live in. Paul's always trying to kick me out if he has to do something, but this timer window, I get in the morning and I start timers immediately. If I know that I have 4 or 5 clients that I have to talk with that day, I will start timers for them and have them ready for me to go in and out of. We can have one timer running at a time. When you open the timer window, you get a window that looks like this, and that's independent of your PracticeMaster window. So you can be working in PracticeMaster and have this reduced down on your toolbar or your taskbar and be in and out working and starting and stopping timers as you go out through the day. So in the morning, this will be blank when I come in, and I will just go ahead and I will click on Create a New Timer, and let me get that to stop. It keeps wanting to ask me about that. So now it's started a timer, and you can see it's 0 time. I haven't begun the timer, but I've just created one. I haven't assigned it to a client yet, and I can start, several of these. And I'm going to just tell that not to show me again. It's getting annoying. Okay, so here's 2 timers I have in here. And I might know that I'm going to deal with Scooby-Doo today. So if I double-click on this, it takes me into a time task window that looks very similar to a journal record, because it is. It's going to create a journal record for me from here. I can go in here and I can go ahead and start typing Scooby-Doo, and I can assign this timer to Scooby-Doo. Now, I haven't done any work yet. It hasn't begun the timer. I don't have a date or a time in there, but I've got him ready to go because I know I'm going to work on this file today. And I can create several of these. I can, for whoever I know I'm going to work on. And then I also create a miscellaneous one, because you always have that person that calls in that you weren't expecting to talk to, but you have to, you're going to be billing them. So I can just flip out of here real quick, turn this one off, and turn on the miscellaneous. And when I'm finished with the call, double-click and assign it to the client that I'm actually going to bill. You can also start a non-billable timer. So that way, if you're at lunch or you step away from it, you can click on the non-billable, and you get in that habit of always having a timer running, and you're accounting for all of your time throughout the day. Now, you aren't going to actually convert that non-billable at the end of the day, but it's just your way of getting in that, routine, always having a timer going. Now, let's say that I start all my timers here for 5 people, and I get to Scooby-Doo, and I get to Mr. Smith and Mr. Brown, but I have 3 other ones on here that I didn't get to today, but I know I'm going to get to them tomorrow. Well, you haven't started them, and they'll just sit in there until you do. So they can wait till tomorrow, and you can begin the timer. It'll fill in the date for you, and you can go ahead and pick up those files tomorrow and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and start this timer. So let's say I've got Scooby-Doo, and I go ahead and I start. It's going to start ticking away at my time, and all of a sudden Mr. Jones calls, so I stop that timer, and I go ahead and click on Mr. Jones, and I start running Mr. Jones' timer. And in this case, I haven't assigned it to Mr. Jones yet, but that's okay. I'm going to just go ahead and pretend this is a miscellaneous one, and they called in, and I did some work. I'm going to go ahead and stop that timer, and now I can double-click on it. I can go ahead and assign it to whoever that client is, and then I can type my journal note of whatever it is that I talked about or I did, and then I can save it, and then that will go ahead and have my description and who the client was that I had chosen. And at the end of the day, I just keep these open. I don't convert them until the end of the day, because I might have talked to Scooby-Doo this morning, and then 10 minutes later, he calls back because he's got a quick question that he needs me to answer. And so I can just come back in and just restart his timer and add that to whatever I just did. It might have been a follow-up question. It might be something totally new, whatever it would be. And so at the end of the day, I'll have all my timers in there. And then I can just double-click on them, and I can come over here and convert them to a fee. And it does the same thing. It takes me right over, and if I've set my settings over here under maintenance, I can then, default it. It'll just round it to the nearest tenth. It will, do a bill minimum of a tenth. So it's already taken care of all the work for me. All I'm doing is converting. It fills in my time, and I'm done. It's already billed and finished. The other thing that you can do in your timer windows, let's say that I did start my work on Scooby-Doo, and I had to get away from my desk for a few minutes, and so I stopped my timer, and I come back, and I started working on the file again, and 10 minutes later I realized that I forgot to start my timer to restart it for his billing. You can open the record and come down here to Edit Times, and then you have the ability to go ahead and back that up or rearrange, add rows, whatever you have to do. Maybe I did this work earlier, and now I can insert a row and say, well, I really didn't start at 1:30, I started at whatever time, and you can back that up and modify it. So you have that ability to edit those times when you're all done, and it will go ahead and calculate that out for you before you convert it. So you can just verify and double check your time. It has your duration down here, so you're all set that way. So that's the way you can use that timer to capture your time throughout the day and not lose any of that valuable billable time. Paul's going to also talk to you about how to process these all in a group, but that's the timer window. You also can start a phone task if you want to. This will create a journal record for you that is labeled timer. When you're over in the journal record under the client, you'll notice that you have different designations. You can do a research, a phone, a timer, email. There's all kinds of different journal notes or journal records that you can create. When you create timer records like this and you go ahead and put your description in, it will create a journal note that's called timer in front of it. So if you ever had to sort out all of your records, you can sort by timer or email or client note or whatever that would be. You also in the timer can start a phone task, and it would be labeled as a phone timer task. And there's also research. So you can designate these as a little bit different timer record. And that would also be over on your settings on how you convert to fee settings as to how you set that up. You know, maybe you want your phone task to be a little bit different. So that's available. Are there any questions? Okay. I'm going to get out of that and give it back to you, Paul.
Well, actually, I'm going to go back here to the timer. You exited that, Mary Jo? I sense that there is something that I know that Mary Jo doesn't. And since as time goes on, that is so rare, I wanted to take advantage of this because she said that she will click on one that's already running. So we've got this going here. So she'll click here to stop it, and then she'll start this one. Well, maybe she doesn't know that if you just click on this one to start it, it will automatically stop that one. Now, she's pretending right now like she already knew that, but I think that that's really just a ploy because, as I said, it is so rare these days that I know something that she doesn't know. Now, I'm going to go back here. One more way to capture fees kind of on the fly is to have it be part of, and here's all the things I'm supposed to be doing at 1:30. We'll get them snoozed for 5 minutes and then we'll get done here before they come back, is to have it as part of a document assembly. We have clients, we have a foreclosure firm that I think all the time that they enter is flat fee, and it's all done as a part of generating certain documents. When they generate the complaint, it automatically bills $175. When they generate this certain other document that takes it to phase 2 because it's gone beyond a standard complaint, it automatically bills maybe another $75, maybe not, whatever it is. So if as part of document assembly, I'll go ahead and say yes, show assembly. It hopefully is going to carry on here and ask me for the date of this letter. Let's say that you're going to charge a quarter of an hour for composing this letter. We won't tell anybody that it only took 10 seconds to do. You can have it automatically pop, and these fields can be filled in as part of this specific document being assembled. Now, some of you are using document assembly in PracticeMaster. Others may be shaking their heads going, what is this? Document assembly simply is the ability to create standard documents that pull data and pull phraseology from PracticeMaster based on what the data in PracticeMaster for that matter is. So in this example, I'm writing a letter to John Hoover at Hoover Hall, and I am going to then bill for the preparation of that letter for, and I did this wrong. We did this with 37 seconds left before 1 o'clock. So obviously I put the 0.25 hours in the wrong field when I was coding this. This 2.25 should be over here and should be automatically computing this amount. But bottom line, you can have it set, and I'll just go ahead and close this. You can have it set to automatically generate a fee as part of your document assembly process. So if you charge, a tenth of an hour for preparing a certain letter and 0.25 hours for preparing a certain other document, you can build that right into your document assembly master documents, if you will, and it will always bill that amount. I'm going to go ahead and get out of Word. Oops. I'm going to go ahead and get out of Word, and in fact all I'm going to do is bring this down here. And there's one more way. How many have we had so far, Mary Jo? 6, 7? One more way to add fees in PracticeMaster. Now, Mary Jo showed you how to convert a single journal entry or a single calendar entry or a single phone task or any of those single entries to a fee. There is another place you can go, and it's under File, and it's a routine called Process Timer Records right down here. PracticeMaster knows all the emails that you journal. PracticeMaster knows all the notes that you take, all the events that pass. In other words, if you had a 1-hour pretrial hearing this morning at 9 o'clock, if you were to run process timer records after 10 o'clock, because it was a 1-hour event that started at 9, it would consider this to be something that you've done. It knows all the tasks that you check off as being done. It can take all of these things and actually present them to you in what we call the process timer records window. And I've got some very old stuff because I've never used this feature, so we're just pulling in some old stuff. And you can check one off or check off several of them, and you can either convert to fee or combine to fee if you've got more than one checked off, or you can mark as hidden. So basically, if you run this routine every day, it will show you everything you did that day, or should I say, since the last time you did it. So if you run this routine today at 5 o'clock, this list will shrink up to nothing because you'll either mark them as hidden, or you'll convert them to fee, or you'll combine several email entries into one preparation or review and reply to email. And this list will end up being empty, and all your entries will have been turned into time, converted to time. Now, that word convert to fee the word convert is a little bit deceptive. It does not take this journal record and convert it into a fee record. It actually creates a second record. That creates a lot of confusion for people. But once you've converted all these records into fees, this list will close up, and the next day you will be accumulating more entries so that at the end of that day you will be able to go through and do the same thing. Some people like to do it the way Mary Jo showed you, which is on a one-by-one basis, and some people like to do it more at the end of the day. Some people kind of cover both bases and they do it both ways. So if you haven't already converted something to a fee, it'll still show up on this list. So there we have it. We have a whole bunch of different ways to enter fees into tabs through PracticeMaster. Very neat stuff, because it's not just remembering that you talked to somebody on the phone for 0.2 hours. It has a process, part of the process of memorializing that by creating a journal record describing what you did. You also have the ability to create the fee entry right then and there. Much more intuitive for lawyers, a better place to enter fees for lawyers because it's where they're already living if they're using PracticeMaster to any extent to get their information. And for the people that are running tabs, it's a good thing also because it keeps them out of tabs. One of the things that people frequently worry about from a billing perspective is lawyers mistakenly doing the wrong thing within tabs and accidentally final billing somebody or accidentally updating something that shouldn't be updated. This prevents that from happening. Now, we're already late, so I'll be very quick in showing you our new feature that will probably run for several months, which is version 16 tip of the day or month or week or whatever you want to call it. We won't have another one for another month. In version 16, the integration between the Outlook calendar and PracticeMaster's calendar is very, very, Leanne, are you still seeing the blue and white screen? Yeah. Okay. We've got a little bit of lag here, so I'll just talk while we wait for the screen to catch up. No, I don't want you. We're just not catching up with you. You're fine, Mary Jo. Now we're seeing my desktop, but that's all right. Okay. So in version 16, the integration between the calendar in Outlook and the calendar in PracticeMaster is huge in the changes that have been made. One being that it's now bidirectional, so that you can automatically have something go from PracticeMaster to Outlook and automatically have it come back. It is now something that does not rely on setting permissions in Exchange a certain way. It can now happen no matter how your Exchange permissions happen. It now can happen real time, even in a situation where somebody's not logged into PracticeMaster or not logged into Outlook. So if an attorney in the field enters a pretrial conference with the judge in his chambers next Tuesday at 9 o'clock, that will instantly, if they're using over-the-air syncing, go to Outlook and therefore instantly go to PracticeMaster. That is a feature of the Platinum version, what used to be called CSV. But because of all these things, because it's so tight now and because it's so automatic and because it's so synchronized, we've discovered a problem. If you are synchronizing very tightly your calendars between PracticeMaster and Outlook, and you use alarms like I do, as you noticed, my alarm popped up several times during this virtual user group meeting. then what you're going to end up with is getting alarms from both Outlook and PracticeMaster, which is really stupid because you don't need Outlook telling you to do something and then you snooze it in Outlook, which has no effect on PracticeMaster because the snoozes don't sync, and then PracticeMaster pops up and you snooze that. You don't want both programs reminding you of things. You don't want alarms coming from both places. So if you have a PracticeMaster icon on your desktop, or even if you don't, you need to have one somewhere. Hold on one second. Let me get into a PracticeMaster icon. There is a switch you can put in. And so what I'm going to do very quickly is go, let me catch up, and create an icon on my desktop. Now a switch is something that you put in the icon, and the switch tells it to do something a little different than its normal startup behavior. And so if we go here to, do you see it, Mary Jo? Software Technology, Tabs 3 PracticeMaster. Thank you. I want to take one of these, the PracticeMaster icon, and I want to right-click and choose Send to Desktop, or let's create shortcut, Send to Desktop. Okay, let me catch up. Okay. So if you right-click on your PracticeMaster icon on your desktop and choose, I'm going to have you do this, Mary Jo, because we're behind, and it's choose Properties. You will notice that there's something called a target here, and the target has, at the end of it, cm.exe, and you want to add this. If you do have quotes around it, you want to add it within the quotes, and you want, if you happen to have other switches, you want it to be the very first one. So if you happen to have another flash something in here, you'd want this one, no alarms, to come right after the cm.exe. What this does is it tells PracticeMaster when it loads to put itself into a state that will not produce alarms, even though you may have items that are set to alarm. That means that you do this knowing that you are going to get your alarms from Outlook. So of course you need to have Outlook loaded, which most people do, during the day, and your alarms need to come from Outlook, and PracticeMaster will ignore the fact that it's supposed to be doing alarms because it's also passing that alarm activity, that alarm switch, over to Outlook, and Outlook's going to do the alarm. So this is a way to turn off the alarms in PracticeMaster so that if you are doing synchronization, it's not going to come from both Outlook and PracticeMaster. Okay, and I understand there's a question?
Yes, about your other topic, though.
That's all right.
The question is, does PracticeMaster eliminate tabs if you are billing in PracticeMaster?
Does PracticeMaster eliminate tabs if you're billing in PracticeMaster?
And if so, can we upload our tab history for conflict check?
No, PracticeMaster doesn't eliminate tabs. PracticeMaster merely takes that fee entry, creates it, and then passes it to tabs. Tabs is still what you use to produce your bills, to manage your accounts receivable, to log payments, to do all the things that you would do from a billing standpoint. PracticeMaster merely becomes the conduit for entering fees so that they then get passed over to tabs. Okay, any more questions? Any lawyer jokes? Mary Jo, do you know any new lawyer jokes?
Nope.
Okay. Well, that then is the end of our June 2011 virtual user group meeting that we, of course, affectionately call the water cooler. Be with us next month. We don't know what we'll be talking about, but I'm sure it will be exciting. And I'm being told that there is one more question. Can you still enter fees and tabs also? Yes. Entering fees in PracticeMaster does not preclude your ability to enter fees and tabs. And in fact, we have many firms where the attorneys and paralegals will enter the bulk of their fees in PracticeMaster, but there may be, oh, that old guy that doesn't enter fees at all, he writes them down, or whatever the case may be, and so still the administrator or the billing person will go into tabs and enter those fees separately. You still have the ability to enter fees and tabs. You merely have a new way, a new conduit to get those fees into tabs. Any more questions? Okay, well that does it then. We're done for today. Oh, hold on. One more question.
They keep popping up right then. Okay, next question. Once you enter fees in PracticeMaster, does it instantly show up in tabs too?
Once you enter fees in PracticeMaster, does it instantly show up in tabs? Yes. So the fees that are entered in PracticeMaster instantly show up in tabs, and the fees that are entered in tabs instantly show up in PracticeMaster, because remember, what you're looking at there is your WIP fees for that matter, or WIP fees for the firm as a whole if you're looking at it straight from the fee file. So if something gets added in tabs, it's instantly in PracticeMaster and vice versa. Okay, we're going to count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Any more questions, Leanne?
LOL.
LOL. I'm almost 50. What does that mean? Okay. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next month. Bye-bye.